welcome to the Jazz Ranch. You know, it's summertime and the horses are out grazing and they don't know what's going on in the world. And our cats are having a great time because we're around the house a lot now these days. But anyway, I have a special program for you this evening. It's about Charlie Parker, a song he wrote called Privave, very famous blues that he wrote. And it came from a request that I had from a subscriber about talking about jazz rhythm and how to count out your rhythms, how to understand the rhythm, how to be able to sight read rhythm, and so on. And so I have a quote from Charlie Parker. He said, "Definitely, study is absolutely necessary in all forms." You might not have thought he said that, but he did. It's just like any talent that is born within somebody. It's just like a good pair of shoes when you put a shine on it. You know, like schooling brings out the polish of any talent. It happens anywhere in the world. I love that quote. Here's another one that is so true. He said this: "If you don't live it, it won't come out of your horn." So you have to live this life in order to be able to play this music. Okay, so here we go now with a study in rhythm, sight reading rhythm, and a great song by Charlie Parker called Privave. Here we go. Now, this lesson is going to be about teaching you how to read, you know, a rather complex rhythmic song, Privave, how to read that, sight read it, as well as many other bebop tunes, and to understand where the upbeats and downbeats are. That's really the essence of it, upbeats and downbeats. I'm going to just be talking about eighth notes. I'll just touch on 16th notes a little bit on this, but I want to keep it not too complicated, so I'm just going to go with eighth notes, and I'm going to show you a couple of things. I want to compare straight eighths with swing eighths. In other words, jazz swing music is going to have swing eighths. Now, if you're playing a Latin or a bossa nova or a pop tune or rock tune, then you might have even eighths, but in jazz, the unique feel of it is the swing eighths. That's one thing. And also the syncopation. Now, syncopation is defined as a shift of accent in a passage or phrase that occurs when normally a weak beat is accented or stressed. So that's very true. In other words, we tend to, in the jazz phrasing, almost emphasize the weaker beats. Now, what are the weaker beats? Those would be the ands, you know, like 1 and 2 and, or 1 and 2 and 3. So there's a downbeat and an upbeat. I want to talk about the two types of eighth notes first. And if you're a beginner, this will be useful. If you're already intermediate or advanced, you might want to skip ahead, and you'll see the meter readings below this video to what subjects are covered. So you can skip ahead to the more intermediate or advanced subjects later on in this video. Really simply, straight eighths are just like this. It'll play a simple scale. Now we're counting it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So now Dixieland eighths are going to have more emphasis on the first note and less on the second. So Dixieland eighths might be this. Now jazz eighths are going to be more like 2 eighths tied and the third eighth played. So it'd be like. You see? So now here I have an example with a song to make this practical. I have the song Fly Me to the Moon just the way it's written in a fake book or a sheet music. It's written like very straight like this. So now to make it have a jazz feel, you have to get some accents on the offbeats, on the and. So like if I counted this straight, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4. If I make it into jazz phrasing, it's going to be 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and. You hear it? Now that's not the only way you can play. You can play in a variety of different ways. It might be like this. That's jazz. You see, that's the freedom that you have with jazz, is to express that figure, not the way it's written in the book, but any way you like, you know. You know, it's very personal to you and how you feel it, but you want to understand what's going on there with basically the downbeats and upbeats. So now, besides understanding swing eighths, you need to understand the downbeats and the upbeats and be able to play them. So like if you might set the metronome to tell you where the beat is. Now you can pick any tempo you like. This is rather medium slow. So, you know, the downbeat's going to write when it hits, like 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And it's important to know the first beat of the measure. You always have to stay with that first beat. So if I'm going to do eighth notes, now there's going to be twice as many. 2 eighths equal 1 quarter. So I was playing quarter notes right on the downbeat. So now you're going to have a downbeat and an upbeat. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, so now you know the downbeat. Now what if it's just the upbeat? We just want the upbeat or the offbeat or the and. 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now that's the first thing you need to practice. The other ones, the first two are easy, but playing on the upbeat perfectly right in the middle of that beat, it's not this. Let me show you what it isn't. 4. No, there isn't like that. No, it's right in the middle, like 1 and 2 and 2 and 1 and. So really the first exercise before practicing complicated rhythms is just to be able to play on the downbeat and the upbeat. So like maybe pick a chord you like, play it on the downbeat. 2, 3, 4. And then practice it on the upbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. that's more difficult. You see, I kind of messed it up there, but yeah, so that's the first exercise. Now we'll move on. I want to give you a couple more figures, rhythmic figures that are very typical of jazz phrasing and rhythm, and talk about them this way. In other words, count them out like this one. First one is 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3. You see what that is? Now you can practice that from the sheet that I have. And the next one is this. Bop, 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 bop. Now that's mostly upbeats, you know, like it's just right after the 1, it's right into the end. 1 and 2 and downbeat. Up, 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 up. Those are great comping lines because they have, you know, both the downbeat and the upbeat in there. Here's a complicated rhythm, a 3 against 4 that Bill Evans uses a lot. This is going to be 3/8 notes, 3/8 notes against a 4/4 beat like this. Now, to put the concept of downbeats and upbeats into practical application, I'm going to use a couple examples. And the first one is Killer Joe, the song Killer Joe. Just the comping part, just the part the piano player plays against the melody, which is something like this. So you're playing this 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, 4. Now notice the end is right in the middle of the beat. It's not too far ahead or too behind. It's right that's right in the middle. 1, 2. You can try with the metronome. Be sure to check yourself. That's a little slower, but 3, 4, 1, 2. When it's right. There you go. Long, short, long, short, long, short. On the beat, long, off the beat. Now the next example I'm going to use, which is a vamp, and it's from the song Maiden Voyage by Herbie Hancock. And you may just feel this naturally, and you may not want to read it, you know, or understand how it's counted. You might just feel it naturally, which is great. But if you don't feel it naturally, then you want to know what the count is. So I'm going to count it out for you without a tempo first. So it goes 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4, like that. 1. So it goes 1, 2, and 3. That translates to 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4, like that. See? It's hard to count and play it at the same time, but I can play it with a metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a really interesting rhythm, you know, because the first measure that the offbeat hits on the end of 3, and then the next measure it hits on the end of 2. Then you have another figure that leads up to the 1. So that nice balance is what makes it really be interesting and in the pocket and grooving. I should mention that to really understand jazz rhythm, you have to understand what's going on in the bass and drums, you know. So if you're playing solo, you're not going to have that unless you have a backing track. But generally, the bass player is playing on 1 and 3. You know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And and then the drummer's playing a swing beat, which is cha 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 cha, and he's putting the accents on the 2 and 4. So that balance between the 1 and 3 and the 2 and 4 makes it swing. And so, you know, the swing beat, you really want to listen to the rhythm section in any recordings you have to hear what the bass player and drummer are doing, or if you get to play with them live, then you can see how they are holding down the basic rhythm. And then as the pianist, if you're soloing, you can play within that and make it swing based on that being, you know, the jazz rhythm underneath it all, which is necessary to really have it be jazz. You need to have that rhythm section in there. That doesn't mean you can't have jazz just playing solo piano. Of course you can. And particularly if you play bass lines like... In other words, the bass line is going to give you some of that feel of jazz. Now, perhaps the best way to learn this song, Privave, is to listen to Charlie Parker playing it and try to imitate him. That's what we all do as musicians. But also, if you're scholarly, you will also look at the music sheet and you will see how it's written out. And I have that for you here, and with the counting, and you need to count it. So I recommend both your ear and both your intellect involved here. And so the first phrase is this, and it's not played that way with even eighths, it's swing eighths. With the accent being on that C right there, you see, so like that. Or like, then it repeats, but not on the same beat. If it was on the same beat of 1, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3. No, but it comes in ahead of it, comes in on 4. So it's 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and... Okay. You see, so those upbeats. There's an upbeat there. 3 and 4 and then 1 and 2 and 3 and... You see, so there's a grouping of... Three ups, 2, 3, 4, and now continuing with measure 5. This one's really tricky because it's a mistake that often most players make. It's 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. What happens generally is you hold that note too long. You know, you go like 1, 2. And then you're off the count. You know, it has to be 1, 2, and 3, and 4. It's an eighth note tied to an eighth note, so it just gets one beat. But the first one gets a beat and a half. So it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. That comes down to the and again. 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 3. This is pretty straightforward. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 1. So you have 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 1, and. Yeah. And 3. Last one is 1 and 2 and 3, and. You see, what makes this a great song and memorable is not only its melody line, but the rhythm. The rhythm of the on-beats, downbeats, and the upbeats. And how they're all balanced throughout the whole song. It's not all just upbeats or all downbeats. It's a combination of those. And that's what makes it swing. That's what makes it jazz. Signing off from the Jazz Ranch. Thanks so much for joining me. Please write to me. I love to hear your comments, and I will always respond if you give me enough time. Until next time, I'll say, be smart, be safe, and be sure to spread kindness, and also swing loose. Bye-bye.